wood bowl or whatever, you don't. Just get like whatever big bowl you have. I just happen to have this one here. So what I'm going to do is just flip the rice over into this big pot. And sometimes it has trouble coming out. That's okay. Help it a little bit. I've been told that if you use a wooden spoon, it helps not to crush the rice as much. So as you can see, it's really fluffy. Like it's really like a light fluffy rice. And I think I used actually Tokyo Rose rice for this. If you're looking for it in your bulk food store or grocery store, they sell it everywhere. So you can easily find it. And while that's warm, what I'm going to do, I've tried this several different ways, like wait till it's cold to add the sushi vinegar. I've tried, you know, let it cool down a little bit first, but I find that if you do this when it's still kind of like you can see it's kind of steaming, it actually has better coverage when you're putting it in, so I kind of like that. So what I'm going to do is actually transfer the sushi vinegar to something that's a bit easier to pour. And then what you're going to do is you're going to slowly add the sushi vinegar. Instead of just pouring it in, just add a little bit at a time. Because sometimes when you add it, it's a little bit too obnoxious. So then I just kind of like run it through like this. Again, you don't really want to like squish any of the rice. You just kind of want to cut through it. And I've seen like some sushi chefs that have like crazy skills where they're just sort of like shifting it all around and they make it look so like exciting or whatever, but really what you're doing is you're just trying to get good coverage over all of the rice. So what I'm going to do is just continue to pour little bits at a time. Let it go in there. And I mean, if you know, one time you make a mistake and you put a little bit too much on, that's no big deal. You'll know for the next time that you should just put a little bit less on. So it's really okay. So I made about 2 1/4 cups, and that's dry rice, which created this mass of rice. And then I used almost all of my sushi vinegar. Okay, so I had about 1/3 cup, and it looks like I have about, I don't know, just shy of 1/8 cup. But again, it's personal taste, right? So I just kept adding it until I thought that it tasted right. And I believe that if I put any more in here, the taste will be a little bit overpowering. So I don't want to use any more of that. So I can just put that aside. And then what you're going to do is, because you're not entirely ready to start making sushi, and you really do want the rice to cool down kind of a room temperature before you start, you know, using it or whatever. So what I'm going to do is leave that in there, and I have a very damp cloth, and what I'm going to do is just cover up the rice like that. And this is just so that the rice doesn't dry out, which if you leave it out in the open air, it will. So if you just leave that little bit of moisture on top, it'll actually stay nice and moist. Okay, so we basically have everything laid out now that we need to make sushi. So what I'm going to start off with doing is just to make a California roll. So what I've done is taken my bamboo mat and covered it in saran wrap or plastic wrap, whatever you have. It just makes it a lot easier to use. So then I'm going to take some rice. Let's bring it right over here. Actually, I'm going to take, one of these nice little seaweed sheets, and you put some of the rice on. And after you do this a couple times, you'll just kind of realize how much rice you need for each sheet, which isn't tons. You don't need a whole lot, but remember, and just remember to cover all the rice back up so that it doesn't get dried out. Okay, so now what you're going to do is you're going to cover the entire sheet with rice, like so. And I mean, you want to try to get it as even as you possibly can, but you'd be surprised with, after you end up rolling it up, how actually well it covers. And I don't know if you've ever had sushi that was like had way too much rice on it, but that's the cool thing about making it at home. You can kind of control how much or how little rice you want to actually put on your sushi, which is handy. And then I have some of these sesame seeds, which I'm just going to sprinkle over top. And then we're going to take this whole sheet and turn it over. Then we're going to take this crab stuff that I had before. Actually, I'm just going to get this rice off my hands. It's really gross. Okay, so we're going to take this crab, and it should be at the end where you have left a little bit of a gap. So what I'm going to do is fold it over once, and I'm going to follow it with my bamboo mat. I'm just going to keep it nice and tight in there. And again, you're not squishing it, but you're rolling it up very firmly. And again, it looks probably like I'm squeezing really hard, but I'm just trying to get it all nice and firmly inside, and that's what you end up with. Okay, so you can actually shape this however you want. If you want to make this into a square, you can actually put it back on your table, and you literally just square it off with your mat. It's kind of the cool thing of it being bamboo, right? So now it's this nice little like square shape. And that's how you do that. Okay, so we're going to make a Philadelphia roll. And I have laid out the rice already on my nori, and I just want to point out the little gaps that you put at the top of your sheet of nori. And the reason you do that is it really does help when you're rolling the roll. Otherwise, I found that you put too much rice on it, and then it's just this big wad of rice, and it's not really helpful to anyone. So just to point that out. So now what we're going to do is turn this over again. Okay, and we're actually going to take a piece of this. This is smoked salmon. You can use fresh salmon, smoked salmon, whatever you really do prefer. I like the smoked salmon. I think it tastes good, and especially in the Philadelphia roll, I find it tastes really good. So sometimes you can get these on these sheets, and you just like fold it back, and you can take a little hunk off like that. And depending on how much salmon you want to use on this, what I do is just kind of roll it up. So it's just kind of this little bit of a wad, and you just sort of put it in the bottom third. So if I flip this over, this is the little part with no rice on it. So just so you can visualize what that would look like. And I think I'm going to use a little bit more, just because we've got kind of a bit of a space just down here. So as you can see, nothing ever has to be perfect. You want to keep everything tidy, but at the same time, if it's not perfect, you can just change it to whatever it is you like. So this is my version of a Philadelphia roll, and all it is the smoked salmon, and then I just take some of this cream cheese, and you literally just put the cream cheese on the sushi. It's really a shame what us North Americans have done to sushi. I don't think anyone in Japan would necessarily appreciate this recipe, but oh well. Well, you just kind of line it just down. And now I'm just rolling the sushi up. So I take my bamboo mat from behind and wrap it over top, and then I just roll it around. This one rolls up really nicely because you don't have a whole lot of pieces that are falling at the ends or anything. You just continue to roll it up so it's all the way over. Give a little bit of a firm squeeze. It should look like that when you're done.